I loved how I said I was gonna take a break from horror books, but it's only like 2 days later, I think. I don't remember exactly when I decided to finish that vlog. I think it was Friday. Yeah, because we left Saturday. So I kind of took off Saturday, Sunday. I said I was gonna take this whole week off, and that did not happen. I ended up starting to read one of the books on my list, and I was like, this is so good that I want to read it. And it's definitely one of the horror books that I have on this list. So we're starting back up again. But I ended up picking up House of Hunger, and I finished it. I really read this in 2 days, I think. I probably could have read this whole book in one sitting, but I've been busy doing a lot of other things. And I really liked this. This is the type of horror that I like. This is gothic horror that is more about like emotions and ramifications of actions and learning to become yourself in a story. And that's what I like about horror. That's what I loved about The Haunting of Velkwood. Had a lot of those same aspects of it. Totally different book, but I loved it. This was so good. I don't think it's a 5-star because our main character did get a bit on my nerves, and I love the length of this book, but I actually do think this could have been better if it was like 50 pages longer. Although again, I love shorter books. I think I do tend to like shorter books, but there was just a little bit more that I needed. I wanted a little bit more world building, a little bit more backstory, but I feel like that's the fantasy side of me saying that and not like the horror fan side of me. This was great. This was like, I don't even know how to describe this. This is definitely gothic horror. You're definitely following, it's like definitely character study, I would say, following our main character Marion and her journey and what she's going through. And it was just so well written. I loved the writing style. I'm definitely gonna have to pick up another Alexis Henderson. I am so glad I didn't skip Evernight, because the new An Academy for Liars, I think, is what is coming in Evernight. And I am so happy that I did not skip it, because I was really thinking about skipping it because I hadn't read from this author before. But so good. This is really good. I'm gonna give it a 4-star, I think, is about right. Marion's decision making towards the end really got on my nerves, and I think that's what hurt it. And then, like I said, I needed about 50 more pages for like a little bit more stuff happening. But this one is following our main character Marion, who lives in this, it's like our world adjacent, but there are it's a weird one to explain. Basically, it's our world, but people consume blood for health. A lot of people just believe in the healing properties of blood, and there are different houses that exist. And those houses, like, what is it? The House of Doves. Our main house is the House of Hunger. There's the House of Fog, the House of Mirrors. I would have loved for those to like get more explored. It was such a great fantasy setup, which is funny because this is definitely horror. It's not like, there's a little bit of fantasy in this, but I would say it's 99% horror. It felt like it could have been a fantasy book with the setup of it. I loved the setup of this. So you have all these different houses and these blood maids. There are women who basically bleed for people. Like, it's their job. And most of the houses, they indenture blood maids to serve like the lords and the ladies and stuff like that. So she gets indentured into House of Hunger, and basically she starts learning that not everything is as it seems, which I feel like is most horror books. So yes. While I was reading this, I think this is a really good chill horror. I don't think this is intense horror. This is just fun. This reads so much like Bloom. So I read Bloom a couple months ago by Delilah S. Dawson, and the vibes are so similar. I mean, obviously they're totally different books. Like, this is definitely gothic, takes place definitely a long time ago, and Bloom is contemporary and not gothic, but the relationships are very similar. The way that the characters act are very similar. The general vibe and the feelings of it is basically take Bloom and make it a longer novel. And I loved that because I gave Bloom a 4-star, and this also gets a 4-star. So if you liked this, I do think Bloom is a little bit more gruesome, but everything else just, it's the vibes. The vibes are so similar. So if you liked Bloom, definitely read House of Hunger. If you liked House of Hunger, I would try out Bloom. So It just made me very happy. Like, I feel like this was such a win. I was not expecting to like this one as much as I did, and it was seeming like a 5-star for a little bit, but it just wasn't there. It's hard for me to rate a horror book 5 stars. It's got to have something like real extra in there, and this was great, but it wasn't a 5-star. But I really enjoyed this one. This is probably going to go on the top of the list of the horrors that I've read so far for Halloween. In other news, being responsible took a bit of a hit this weekend because I ended up going to Barnes & Noble to get my aunt her present for her birthday. And I was at Barnes & Noble, and it's always a mistake going there. Like, even if you have the best intentions. My intentions were to get the Housemaid series for my aunt because I think she really likes mystery thrillers and she hasn't read that one yet. And me, my mom, and my sister-in-law have read them, and it would be really fun if she read them because then we can talk about them. So I went there with the intention of getting her the series, which I did. But I also bought this. Everyone is reading it and everyone is loving it, and it just seems like something I would really, really like. So I bought a horror book, even though I said I wasn't going to anymore, until I figured out what I liked. My head hurts. But this is like, I feel like this is something I like, right? Haunted house stories, and it seems like it's gonna be some family drama, which I said I liked. So I'm probably gonna read this one next. Because the ones I was looking at reading next were probably, I'm trying to like have it speak to me, like what is speaking to me, and this is speaking to me. But I also just bought it, so surprise. I would say Parasite is speaking to me. I can feel this one. I can feel it. I can feel this one. And I also think The Children on the Hill is speaking to me a little bit. Love this cover. So I feel like out of the 3 of these, Parasite, oh gosh, almost dropped it. I don't know why I put the paper back in the center. Parasite's probably the one speaking to me the least. So it's probably gonna be one of these 2. If I can get them out. I don't know what they were hooked on. It's probably gonna be one of these 2. Children on the Hill, or We Used to Live Here. Great, I have some updates. Well, they're kind of weird. So this video is going to be going out before my Lazy Book Club for October is coming out, which is The Gathering, and it is a horror. So although I do think it's more detective thriller than horror, so that's kind of works for not really talking about it in this video, but I can see why people also classify it as horror, but I can't really talk about it in this video because I don't want my book club members to have that whole video ruined for them. So I guess I'll just tell you what I learned from that one, because I did finish The Gathering and I like detective fiction, so it does kind of ruin the fact that I liked the book. You don't know how much I liked it though. But I like detective fiction in general. I really like it. I already knew that from like cozy books. I feel like it's just nice to know that I also like it in horror books. So I definitely think I'm going to seek out detective fiction and horror, detective storylines and horror more, and see if that is the case, because I feel like I haven't read that much detective horror. I feel like that's not a hugely common thing that's written. I definitely want to find more that relate to detectives, and a detective is like the main character. So that's like the biggest thing that and I like vampires. I like vampire stories, but I feel like that's not enough to like the book, because I read Bless Your Heart, which has vampires in it, and I gave it a 1 star. That was a cozy horror, and I normally really like cozy horror, and I did not like that one. That one I read a while ago for one of my horror vlogs in during the summer, I think. Vampires don't always mean I'm gonna like it, but I would say detective fiction. Yeah, we're gonna say we learned that from The Gathering. Then the real update. So let's talk about the book that I just DNF'd. If I did not DNF it, it would have gotten a 1 star. I'm really loving DNFing stuff because I feel like I am not giving 1 stars to anything, and it's fantastic. My worst books of the year is gonna be such a strange video because 90% of the books are going to be DNFs. And I feel like that's gonna rub some people the wrong way, but that's just what it is. That's what it's gonna be because I'm not finishing books I'm not liking. So anyway, I read It Will Only Hurt for a Moment, I think is what it's called. It's Delilah Dawson's new book. And no, I don't have a physical copy of it. Yes, this is supposed to be me reading my physical books and trying to get through my physical horror books, but I have a couple of arcs that I had to get through. So like in the last video, I read The Lamplighters, and then I read It Will Only Hurt for a Moment by Delilah S. Dawson, which comes out on the 22nd, and it is currently the 19th. So I did want to finish that before it came out. I'm trying to stay on top of my arcs, and I have cleared out all my arcs up to date. My next ones that are like due to be read are being published on the 29th. So I have 2 books that I really want to get to before the 29th. We'll see if that happens. I'm like super proud of myself and how I've been doing with my arcs, and I'm at an 80% completion rate, which is like amazing. So I've been trying to keep that completion rate up. I've been trying to finish them before they're published, and I feel like that goal is going really well. It's going really well because I'm also not like requesting a bunch of stuff. I'm being super picky about what I'm requesting. So anyway, side tangent aside, I have spent what feels like an eternity reading the book. I read it until about 50%. I read 50% of the book, and I could not go on. It is one of those books that you're reading that, okay, here's an example. I was reading it last night and I was at 36%, and I read for what felt about a half an hour. I feel like I got through a couple of chapters, and then I looked down at my percentage and I swear it said 34% after I had read more. That's how exhausting, mentally exhausting this book is. I felt like I was reading for days and for hours and hours and hours and getting absolutely nowhere in this book. And I am in shock because this is Delilah S. Dawson. I gave Bloom 4 stars, and that is, I mean, stuck in my brain. The writing, the characters, the storyline, the overarching, like the feelings. Oh my gosh, so good. Guillotine also got a 4 star. It was a lower 4 star, but it was 4 star, and it was fun, campy, goofy sometimes, and it was like impactful. Where did all of that go? Like, that left the building for her brand new book. The brand new book is following our main character, who I can't even remember her name, and she is just out of a long-term abusive relationship, and she's an artist. An artist. I love artists until I read this book. That's me being super dramatic, but I'm gonna be super dramatic during this because this book is the first book in these 2 Halloween vlogs that has legitimately pissed me off. This is legitimately one that I don't like, and I learned nothing from. Well, besides I don't like generic plot lines. That's really what this is. It feels like Delilah S. Dawson did not try when she wrote this book. So she decides to go to this artiste retreat, and it's her and like 8 other super stuck up, pretentious people. They're all awful. They're all horrible people. Sarah's our main character. Oh my gosh, I remember her name. So unlikable as well. Every single person in this book is wildly unlikable because they are fake characters. They are not real people. There is nothing real whatsoever about this story. I did not buy a second that these people are real. Like, I know that there's people out there that really exist, but the odds of having the most generic caricature versions of people all in the same place just is absurd. It was absurd. You had like the camp counselor woman who owns the place, who it was handed down through generations, and she's exasperated all the time, very type A, fights with everybody. It's a very awkward situation. You have Sarah, our main character, who thinks she's better than other people. Like, her medium of being pottery is clearly better than everything else. And she has the very tropey, like, PTSD situation going on. And I feel weird saying that. I feel weird saying that because abuse is very serious. But this book, like, almost talks about it in such a way that you're just kind of like, it's so not impactful how she talks about it. And the book is like, she talks about her ex so much. It feels like the book is about Kyle. I remembered his name before her name. That's how bad it is. It felt like a book more about Kyle than about our main character, Sarah. Like, I feel like I knew more about Kyle than I did about Sarah at the 50% mark. And he wasn't even in the book at that point. So it absolutely wild the way that was written. So then we have like Sarah making fun of the other artists before she knows that they're jerks, which is the problem. Like, once she finds out they're mean, that's totally different. But this one woman likes to live in the past and likes to do like Downton Abbey stuff. She's a costumer and she dresses up like that, and she's like literally making fun of her for that. And I'm like, ew. Like, Sarah, ew, why are you acting like this? And she's acting so much better than everyone. So already I was like, not interested in being anywhere near this main character. And then you have like the lovesick puppy, gorgeous metalworking man that doesn't even need to be in this story. I don't understand why she decided to put a romance in this story when it really should be about Sarah discovering herself after being in an abusive relationship with a man. Like, she just got out of it, and you already are trying to set her up with like Romeo over here. Hated that. Shouldn't have included any type of romance. Should have just all been friendly. You have the overly obnoxious, gothic, younger, invincible feeling photographer girl who's very angsty but actually has super soulful underneath all of that. I mean, oh, and then you have the older, creepy white man, the only older man there, who ends up being like the most racist, misogynistic, bigoted, disgusting person. And it's like, everything is just so obvious. It's just so laid out for you like that. And it was so tired. Try something new. Give me something unique, because it did not feel unique in the slightest. Because at the summer camp, bodies start showing up, and attached to the summer camp you have an abandoned spa, creepy haunted asylum looking thing that you're not allowed to go into because it's super, super dangerous. But of course all the characters are going to try to go in there. What is the point of this book? Like, legitimately, what is the point of this book? There is nothing new, nothing even remotely interesting about this book. I skimmed the rest of the 50%, and this book could have been 200 pages shorter. This should have been a novella, and it probably would have been campy and interesting, and then I probably would have liked it. You could have just cut out all of the things about Kyle and all of them just sitting around eating. If you cut all of that out, 150 pages probably. That's how obnoxious that was. So I feel like I didn't learn anything other than I don't like super generic, poorly written books, which is, I feel like, a given. I feel like that's everybody. So I'm really mad. I'm mad. I feel like I wasted a lot of time on this book. This is the first book that's really ticked me off because I had such high expectations, and it legitimately was so bad. It may be the worst one I've read this year. That's how bad it is. I think I might try We Used to Live Here next, because I've been hearing a lot of really good things about it, and I feel like I need a slam dunk after this. But I am taking a break from horror books after reading It Will Only Hurt for a Moment. I'm kind of feeling a little zapped of energy and creativeness. So we're gonna figure that out. Other than that, that's the update. I feel like I was not expecting to film a rant within either of these videos because of how I'm going about these videos. So that is very surprising that I'm like so mad. So I will let you know when I end up reading something. Again, I really hope that I end up liking whatever I pick up next, because I would like this to go back up, because House of Hunger was great. Good things happened with The Gathering, and then It Won't Only Hurt for a Moment, like, absolute tank nosedive. Worst book that I've read in a little while. So let's get back to enjoying reading. Why don't we? There were, if you watched the first video, there were 2 boxes that I did not go through upstairs to get my horror books. And I just went through them. I found more. I don't know if some of them are horror books, but you can see the piles that I had kind of, well, this one's actually, that one doesn't count. These 2, I had gotten them down, and now they are back up again. So the ones that I found were Where He Can't Find You, which is definitely horror, Delicious Monsters, which is horror, The Violent Season, which is like creepy thriller, so I think that kind of counts. Rules for Vanishing, which I think is more mystery, but I also think there's ghosts in it, so I think that counts. And then I don't know what Gallant is, so I'm gonna have to look through these and make sure that they're actually horror books. And then on this side, we found a bunch of Darcy coats. I don't remember if I had Dead Lake up here. I think oh yeah, I did, because Parasite's there. I found a House of Shadows, Suburban Hell, my Stephen King, which I think I'm gonna make a separate video, and then The Whispering Dead, Haunting of Ashburn House, and The Haunting of Maddie Clare, which I think this is more of a mystery. So if you take out the ones that I'm not sure about, it's probably, see, it's not that bad. I really just added 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books, which I think is how many I got through in the first video. It's not going well. I was like so optimistic at the beginning of this that I was gonna get through all of these books, that I wasn't gonna have any horror left. Like, who am I? Who actually am I? Yeah. We're smart. We're smart over here. So, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. I really don't know what I'm doing. I have the Narrow pulled out. I just don't want to read it. I don't want to read it at all. So, we're gonna see. I'll let you know when I actually read something. I also forgot to tell you, I got my new Kindle set up. This is kind of where I sit and read because of my back. Sitting is actually hard, so I actually lay down, and you can see my heating pad right there. And I like sitting underneath the window. It's really nice, and that's my crochet project right now that I'm working on. And you can see the little arm right here. It holds the Kindle up, and my best friend got me a Kindle clicker, so it's kind of the best thing ever. So I just sit here, watch Love is Blind, and read my books. It's fantastic. Got a little bit of an update. I like just woke up. It's pretty early in the morning, and it feels so nice. Like, I've been getting up early lately because it's been warmer during the day. It's still like only 77 is the high during the day, but to me that is too hot for Halloween. It's too hot. And I used to live in a much hotter state, or area, I guess, and because some parts of that state are actually really cold, but I'm just like so looking forward to my first colder fall in 6 years. Like, I am so excited. So I'm trying to take advantage of it at every opportunity that I have, and I'm just very excited. I'm looking like a bit of a mess. I have a lot of acne right now, which I don't normally get a lot of acne. I get acne around one time a month. You know what I mean? So they're just popping up. I'm loving it. And they hurt. I feel like I always get them on my chin and they hurt. So, and I can't stop like touching them, which is like the worst thing that you can do. I don't deal with acne well. I'm glad I did. I was very blessed to not really have acne as a kid. I was very lucky, but I also never wore makeup or anything like that. I do think that some people, like teenagers, because they wear a lot of makeup, that's what can cause like a lot of acne, because, you know, kids, teenagers, lots more oils and stuff, and you're trapping them with makeup. So I was glad that I was not a makeup girl, because I think I probably would have had more acne as a kid, but I was just blessed because my mom really didn't either, so thank God. But as an adult, I am getting a little bit more acne as an adult, which kind of sucks. I'm not loving that, but it's still not that bad. It could be a lot worse. Anyway, that aside, I just wanted to look at the elephant in the room, but I have some updates. And one is definitely kind of like a okay, this kind of stinks, but also kind of good because I'm not going to buy from this author again. So I did attempt to read The Children on the Hill, and I did not enjoy it. And I think I did not enjoy it because well, there's a couple different things. I don't like kids in books. I really don't. The only one that I was kind of liking was its incidents around the house. I loved that book except for the ending. I hated the ending so much I gave the book a 1 star. It's probably actually a 2. I'll probably go in and fix that to a 2. But I really hated the ending of that book, but I actually loved the kid narrating it. Normally I don't. I really don't like kids in books, just generally. I just do not enjoy it. Speaking of which, you can hear the children screaming in the neighborhood, which doesn't bother me. You just might hear it on here. Children on the Hill, I figured our flashbacks would be children, but I didn't expect it to feel like most of the book was following the children, and I didn't like it. I didn't like immediately starting off where we were. I didn't like how it was like narrated. I didn't like pretty much anything about it. Which really sucks. This actually isn't even a true DNF. This is I read under 50 pages and just was not, couldn't care to continue it. And I didn't like the writing style of this, which I think is an author issue, because I also tried to read My Darling Girl, I think that's what it's called, by Jennifer Hillier, the newer one that came out, and I really didn't like that one either. I also DNF'd that one pretty early, like almost immediately, and I also didn't like the ending once I figured out what the ending was, and I don't like the ending of this once I figured out what the ending of this was too. So I think she's just not the author for me, so I don't think I'm gonna try another one because I haven't even made it through one. That's like the thing, is I haven't even made it through one Jennifer. I keep saying Hillier, haven't I? I've read Jennifer Hillier before and I liked her books. Jennifer McMahon. Oh man. I'm glad I caught on to that without because later editing I would have been like, you idiot. It's literally right there, you idiot. Well, I just don't think I vibe with this author and what this author's twists are necessarily, and the writing style. So because I can't even make it through 30 pages of one of her books, I'm just not gonna bother picking up another Jennifer McMahon. So sad, because I think this one sounds really, really good, and it was definitely a bit of FOMO when I bought this because everyone was reading this and really liking it. It's just, no. I really need to stop giving into FOMO, especially when it comes to, well, I say that, but I am halfway through We Used to Live Here. This was definitely a FOMO pick. I was not going to buy this, but every single person and their brother was talking about this book and how cool it was. And I was like, I saw it behind the cash register at Barnes & Noble when I was checking out, and I was like, can you go grab me that? And he was like, oh yeah. And I was like, oh, this is bad. This is bad. This is great. This is so good. This is so far a 5-star horror book. This is so good. I can't, I don't think you should know anything about this book. I literally still don't know anything about this book, other than what I've read. I have no idea the direction it's going, and I don't want to tell you anything about it. The only thing that I will say is it's called We Used to Live Here because it opens up with our main character, Eve. Her and her partner just moved into this new house. It is a very old house, and some people show up, a family shows up at her house and says, I want to show do you mind if we come in? I want to show my family the house. We used to live here, or I used to live here. So that's all you should know going into this book. It's so good. There's hidden messages and Morse code, and it makes so much sense because this guy used to write was it a Reddit thread or something? He had a Reddit thread or a website or something called No Sleep. It is different than the No Sleep podcast. That I believe that is different because I used to listen to the No Sleep podcast and I didn't recognize this. He was writing this story, how they do sometimes on Reddit. I don't know how many of you are Reddit horror fans. On Creepypasta, they tell creepy stories, but then there's also a lot of people will come on and do a serial story where they're almost writing in live, this is what's happening. So they'll come on and write a section once a day or once a week, and you just that's how you follow the story. It's almost like the old days of where some stories used to be told in newspapers and you just get a section a week. And so the crows are out in force today. So that's kind of how this apparently was originally told. I don't think the whole thing was told, if I'm remembering correctly, because I did read a little bit about this, because originally I thought it was the No Sleep podcast guy. So I don't think the entire, I don't know. I don't know if the whole thing was told, but I think this is a more complete story based on what the original story was. So I think that's really cool, and it makes a lot of sense because those online internet things are always so crazy and elaborate most of the time. So there's hidden meanings, hidden messages. I'm obsessed. Like, I am obsessed with this book, and this is the only bookmark I've been using in October. This is, I think, yeah, this was my favorite LitJoy book. I love LitJoy bookmarks. I miss getting LitJoy, but I don't think they're good anymore. That's for another video. But I love this bookmark. It is so cute. So I'm using that for this book. It's so good. It's so good. And I am listening to the audiobook, but I do recommend, if you are able to have a physical copy with you as you listen, because there's, like I said, there's coded messages and shit in here that you will not be able to like fully get from just listening to it entirely. Like, you don't need that, but I think it definitely enhances the experience. So yeah, this is great. This is great. I'm having a great time, and I'm gonna continue reading it. It's so great. It's a 5-star. It's a 5-star, baby. Oh my gosh. This book is going to absolutely live in my brain for forever. I do understand the ratings though, because I think it's like a 3.76 on Goodreads. I like just woke up, so I'm very tired because I spent last night late doing research. This is gonna be its own video. So I'm not gonna talk about it that much in here because it's too much. Like, it's literally too much to talk about, and I don't want to spoil anything at all about this book. I will say I didn't love the ending, which I think is what a lot of people had complaints about. I think a lot of people were annoyed that not more stuff was wrapped up, but I kind of expected that, and I think that's what helped me get this to a 5-star. Number one, I am obsessed with the internet. I feel like to truly give this a 5-star and to really love this book, you have to love the internet and like creepypasta and Reddit and conspiracy theories. I feel like those are the things that if you love those things, this book is like, oh my gosh, like perfection, because this is literally a creepypasta brought to life. I mean, that's literally what it is. And the thing is about this book is you have to go on the Reddit thread to really kind of delve into the conspiracy theories, and there's multiple different threads. Like, I was on Reddit for like 3 hours last night just reading what people were thinking about this book, and this book is crazy. Like, if you really know all the little things that are going on, because it's really easy to miss really tiny things that happen early on in the book that are like huge later on in the book that hint to things, it's just not going to work as much for you. You're just not going to get the full experience from it. So if you do read this, I would recommend then going online, typing in the title, and type in ending explained, and then go through all the Reddit threads, because there is so much to talk about. And then this author originally wrote this story on his thread, No Sleep, and he has a whole universe with stuff like this. And there's actually a short story that he wrote. His short stories are so terrifying. Like, I think he has a second book deal. It said he had a 2-book deal. So I don't know if there's another book after this, which I would love, because I feel like it would explain stuff, but I feel like that would almost negate the purpose of how he writes. How he writes is like, well, what really did happen. So you kind of have to like open-ended things to really enjoy this book. Well, I hate open-ended and I still loved this, but I think it's because of the conspiracy network. Am I a conspiracy theorist? No, I don't really believe in any of them. But I love reading about them. I love reading about them and all of the possibilities. I find that so fun. And that's what this is. This is a conspiracy theorist's dream. Like, absolute dream. But yeah, I can see why people don't like this, because if you don't go further into exploring the plot, it can feel very loose end. And it is very loose end. There's a lot of stuff in here that I think tie to other things. Like, I think they aren't directly related to this book. I think they're related to this universe, because this is actually in a universe on Reddit. And that's why I think a lot of people didn't enjoy it, is because, like, the side stories are important. Like, there's a map at the beginning of this called Old House, and there's, like, shopping malls and asylums and all this stuff, and none of that really comes into play here, kind of. But it's related to his short stories on Reddit, and that's related to some of the characters in here. So that's why it's like it's like this, like, creature he's created that's morphing and changing, and you just need to know everything to really get the whole picture. And so I think that's why we were left a lot of loose threads. There were a lot of loose threads in this book, where I still don't have a theory for some of them, but I think the more I go into his stories, and hopefully he puts out another book, that they'll start making sense. And I think it's going to be one of those situations where you don't have to read all the books, but if you do, you're going to be like, oh, okay, this connected to this, and this connected to this, and this did this, and this did this, and I'm just like, so this is just an absolute dream if you love super analyzing a book. Like, I'm rereading it for a second, I'm really skimming it, and I've never done this before, but I am actively writing in this book. I don't normally do that, but there's coded messages in here, and like, just the craziest stuff. And so I've been highlighting and writing stuff in here, and I have my tabs. I'm halfway through. Yeah, I stopped at halfway because I was freaking myself out with the book again. So that was the other thing. So this is definitely a 5-star. There have only been 3 books that I can think of. Like, there's plenty of movies that have done this, but there's only been 3 books that I can think of that legitimately terrified me. And I may not feel super scared in the moment, but like when I'm by myself and it's dark, or I'm looking in a corner or something, I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have read that. So there's 3 books that have done this. The worst offender was World War Z, and that is what created the core memory of being terrified of zombies for me. Can't do anything relating to them. Didn't even finish that book. I got so scared. I think I threw it out, like, in a dumpster. Not even at my house. I think I was so terrified. And then I didn't read another one that scary until Incidents Around the House, which I'm gonna upgrade to a 2-star. I've talked about it. But I gave it a 1-star because I violently hated the ending. But the rest of the book was so good. And I don't like children in books either. And it was so good. It didn't bother me. Problem is, I really loathed the ending of that one. But that one, that terrified me. That absolutely terrified me. I wouldn't go into our closet for like a week, I think, after I read that book. I was legitimately terrified. It didn't help that one of us, my husband or I, didn't close the closet correctly, and we have our closet is just like one long stretch of wall and has 2 closet doors. So like there's a negative air pressure thing that goes on. So what happened? If you step on a certain spot, it'll open the door. Didn't know that at the time. So I stepped and the door kind of opened, and I was like, I called my mom. I called my mom and she thought it was hilarious. I did not think that was funny. Yeah, so I called my mom after reading that one because I was terrified out of my mind. And this is number 3. I have had nightmares the last 2 nights. And I've read this past 2 days. And I have to continue reading it today because, again, I am doing a full breakdown of this book because it is crazy. It is crazy. I don't know who's going to watch it, but it's for me. It's for me to reference later. I was really tempted actually to end the vlog here, but I've only read one book. Like I read The Gathering, but I can't really talk about it because it's the book club book. And I DNF'd Children on a Hill, and now I've read We Used to Live Here. So I need to read at least one more. Hello everybody, it is time for an update. The final update of our second Halloween vlog. The final book, I did attempt to read. So I did attempt to read Those We Drown. This was going to be my final book because I was like, let's end off on something chill, straightforward, probably a young adult horror because I feel like The Gathering and We Used to Live Here were pretty intense, especially We Used to Live Here, so I just needed something super chill to read. So I tried picking this up. I'm just so sick of the rich kid bullshit. Like, I just am. I am so sick of reading these young adult books, thrillers / horrors that revolve around poor kids getting picked on by rich kids. I'm just sick of it. It's every book. It is every single book. Like, I just read The Debutantes, which I actually really liked. I think I gave it a 3.5. I enjoyed that one. It was a pretty good thriller, and I think it's because it was set in New Orleans with an interesting concept of debutantes, and there was like some weird twists in there that I was like, okay, this is pretty good. But then to like go into this, and it's immediately like a very similar concept, and I'm just like, I'm just not interested in it. And it already was kind of weird at the beginning, and this I'm not gonna lie, this having low ratings did not help the situation. So I think I'm just not interested in this, like, whatsoever. So sadly, because this seemed really cool, but every time I pick up a book that takes place on a boat, I don't end up liking it. So that may be a thing. But I'm still gonna try books like that because I think they sound so cool because like a locked room-esque thing. But this was not it. It was already kind of weird. The dialogue was cringy. The characters were already very cringy. And I just wasn't interested in reading this. So I did not even DNF this because, again, it was under 50 pages. So you will not be seeing this book again after this video. The book that we did end up reading, and I read it in 2 days, I ended up listening to the audiobook, and I'm glad I did because I don't know if I would have finished this one if I had read it physically. I read Where He Can't Find You. I've had this book for a while. I also have the Kindle version of it because I think it was on sale like 99 cents or something one day, and I picked it up because I generally have a lot of Darcy Coates books, which I'm now starting to get a little bit worried about because the first 2 books that I read by Darcy Coates I really liked, and the last 3 that I've read by her I haven't loved. So now I'm like, oh no. And I have like 4 more of her books just sitting in front of me. But I will say, I think a lot of this one had to do with the length. This one is so long. I never love long horror books. I generally think horror books should stay under 350 pages. I think you don't need them to be that much longer than that because the scare factor just starts wearing off. It's like Incidents Around the House. Incidents Around the House was one of the scariest books ever, but it just went on. It wasn't even that long. Yeah, I was sad about that one. But it went on too long for what the concept was, so it just became, it wasn't scary by the end of the book. That's what happened with that one. And it's kind of a similar situation with this one, is this is such a cool concept. So I gave this a 3-star. This is a really cool concept, and it's kind of terrifying, but because there's just long stretches of time where nothing is really happening, that when you actually get to something happening, you're kind of like, okay, whatever. This, I think, okay, so this one is following our main character. That was the other thing. It switched perspectives a lot, and I didn't love that. But our main character, I believe, is Abby, and they live in this really weird town, which, again, this is such a cool concept. They live in this town that is kind of run by a serial killer. Like, they're all kind of stuck there, and they kind of just, like, people go missing, and it's kind of like, yep, they're dead. They don't do anything about it. They've tried, but nothing ever works. And the serial killer kills using, like, this red string. And it's kind of terrifying. It is absolutely terrifying. So they're trying to figure out if there's, like, a supernatural aspect to it, but they're just trying to solve the mystery while also trying to stay safe. And I would say I really liked probably the first half of this book, and then it just didn't end. Like, it just kept going, so that by the time that we reached the ending, I didn't care. So I would say that I would have loved this if this was a TV series. Okay? This would have made a phenomenal TV series, or even a movie, but I think it needs a TV series to get all of, like, the creepiness into it, like the cliffhangers, because there's different murders that happen. And I feel like they could have done something where, like, each episode was a murder and them trying to track down where the thing or the person is. I think that would have been really, really good. And the vibes of this are very Stranger Things, where you have a group of kids who are trying to solve what is going on. There's something unnatural that's going on, and only the kids are willing to really, like, kind of do something about it. So it does have this Stranger Things effect relating to that. And it's just a really interesting concept, but it didn't deliver. It didn't deliver on what was promised because it was just too long. It was too long. And we needed more, there needed to be more tenseness. Like, I needed to feel more tense while I was reading this. And I just didn't get that from this. So I'm sad because, like, I liked it and I didn't at the same time. This is a complicated one, which is why I get the 3, because I'm very on the fence about this one. So pretty much goes dead center, but there's some artwork in here that is stunning. I actually, like, I hope this is made into a graphic novel, because, again, I think this would do really well in a form of media where your eyes can take in a lot of detail and you don't have to be told it. Because I think that's really what hurt it, is, like, you have a scene where one of the characters is walking through the forest and you see, like, sick animals and you see red thread, and it's like, oh, this would be so cool just to visualize. Like, but it was like a long chapter of just following this stuff, and I'm like, it's just a lot to read, which in a thriller horror, it does start making you lose focus a little bit, because, like, you have that type of detail in fantasy books, but it makes sense most of the time for it. But when you get into that level of detail, it brings down the threat level almost when you're reading a type of book like this. Anyway, that was everything for this video. Let's see what we got through. As of right now, I'm pretty happy with what I did. I got through a lot of stuff. Like, I really did. It just doesn't feel like I did because I added, like, 10 books between the first video and the second video. If I hadn't done that, it would look a lot better. But we got through these books. So we had 2 not really DNFs. We had 2 try chapters that just weren't for us. So Those We Drown and The Children on the Hill. And then we had a 5-star with We Used to Live Here. I can't tell you what I rated this, but it's really good. So we had that one, and then we had a 3-star with Where He Can't Find You. So I think it's pretty good, right? I think it's pretty good. So anyway, that is everything I have for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in the next video.